Yep, so my name's Thomas McGlone and I'm the Lab and Operations Manager at an organisation called CMAC, which is based in the University of Strathclyde. And I manage 9 labs here in the university that various projects, research and external rely on. Yeah, so I think a lot of the challenges were that, I had a high number of labs to look after, a lot of equipment in the labs that varied from kind of simple lab equipment to fairly complex. And with the high user numbers we had in the labs, there wasn't really a way to schedule bookings beyond maybe having weekly meetings or something like that to try and make a plan for what was happening, which I think works to an extent for maybe a handful of people. But as soon as you have higher numbers and higher value projects, it becomes more of a challenge. So first and foremost, the scheduling of equipment was the main thing that we were really concerned about. I guess the second thing then was just keeping documentation all together. So every bit of lab equipment could typically be worth anything from £50,000 to several million pounds. So you could imagine that if you've got your car or something like that, there's a lot of service documentation, etc. that you need. So it really was a useful way to keep a repository of, first of all, the delivery notes for equipment, just to know what had been delivered, any kind of training material, operating procedures, anything like that was all in one place and could be accessible for all the lab users as and when they need to use it. So those were the main things, I would say: scheduling, repository of information, and then also the traceability, so we were able to see who's been using what, if there was any damage to equipment or anything like that. It was very easy to go back and look at who was using it previously and figure out what had happened there in a non-blame way, usually. Yeah, I mean, I think as with a lot of these things, people don't like to try new things all the time. Even when they're kind of up to their neck in problems, they still feel that their way is best. And there's just a bit of a culture change to get people over. So I think that was the main thing. It was like, well, do we really want to introduce a new system when there's all those various other systems that are in place for various other things? And that kind of puts people off a little bit, I think was the main concern. Yeah, I mean, I think we were quite nervous, I would say, about putting in a system because it means you would have to train people to use the system. And I think, yeah, just the culture change, getting people over, trying something new. Well, yeah, well, it's definitely meant less people coming to my desk every 5 minutes and asking questions. I think the fact that they're able to access a lot of information just themselves by logging into a kind of user-friendly system really saves a lot of time, and maybe questions that could have been answered by them just reading information has kind of eased a lot of time pressures on myself. I think just the traceability. So with the click of a few buttons, you can generate very detailed usage reports. If you run it for over a year period or something, you can say, this equipment's been used 80% of the time, something like that, which is really useful in an academic environment. Sometimes we need to provide such information to funders. It can also help me when I've got budget. I can look at, that bit of kit is used to death. It really needs to be, a dual capacity, something like that. Or the opposite end is if there's a bit of kit that just isn't being used. I've got the data to back that up and say, this equipment's not being used, maybe I could think of something better to do with it. So all the information in one place, the scheduling, very few clashes with people looking to use instruments. Yeah, absolutely. So the usage reports, we can have instruments that have things like power sources or certain consumables that have a given lifetime. So we could know when they need to be replaced, just basically from the usage reports. So we're kind of preempting problems before they happen, if you like. So we don't wait till something breaks, and then there's like maybe lead times of several weeks or months to get replacements in. We can preempt that by using some of this information as it comes in. And there's even ways to set up alerts to tell you when something's due to be replaced or things like that. Yeah, absolutely. Having been in labs and run labs where they haven't had ULab in place, I've seen the kind of pain that it brings, and I genuinely believe that it can make a real difference. And actually, I've already recommended it to quite a few people in other institutions, and they don't, once they've got it in place, they tend not to look back.